Okay, we're on the air. I'd like to call this meeting of the Development Review Board to order, February 21st, 2022. First item on the agenda is the roll call. Would staff like to please call the roll?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good evening. Lawrence Calderon with the Department of Sustainable Development. Ms. Jenny Bell. Mr. Rick Kane.
Present.
Mr. Brent Hartman.
Present.
Ms. Rebecca Herron.
Present.
Ms. Deborah Neal Marisi.
Present.
Dr. Barbara Vandermeer.
Present.
Chair Ewan Thompson.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a call.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Please let me know who's doing the motion, please. Barbara, approval of the agenda. And who second?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Brent.
Brent
Brent
Hartman.
Hartman. Thank you. The agenda has been approved. We have some minutes from December 14, 2021. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes or any comments on the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes, Deborah Neal Marisi.
Okay.
Second?
Second. Rick King.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved unanimously, 6-0. Are there any requests to address the board on items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, let's move on. Regular items, old business, there are no old business items. New business. Would staff like to please read the petition into the record?
Okay. Let me share my screen here first. Okay. Mr. Chair, petition number is, let me get the item. Okay, petition DB-205 VAR, Miss Melanie Poorman, Tim Pagel Construction, agent for Miss Kamita Johari, requesting a variance to reduce the south rear yard setback from 7.5 feet to 2.5 feet to allow construction of a garage accessory to an existing single-family dwelling, zoned RSF1 single-family residential, located at 2245 Northwest 4th Place.
Thank you. Does staff have a presentation?
Yes. Mr. Chair, members of the board, good evening. Lawrence Calderon, Department of Sustainable Development. This petition is a request to change the rear yard setback for an accessory structure from 7.5 feet to 2.5 feet. And the purpose of this request is to allow construction of a garage, a 3-car garage. The single-family dwelling is currently, single-family property is currently improved with a single-family dwelling. On the right, you could see the general location. On the bottom is University Avenue, West University Avenue. On the top, Northwest 8th Avenue. And Northwest 22nd Street and Northwest 23rd Street run north-south and form collectors to those two main east-west streets. The property is located right in here. This is the subject property, as you can see here. And what I would like to draw your attention to here is the kind of large lot, very low density development in this area. And as you move out, you could see smaller lots, higher density development in those areas. Again, this is a close-up of the property, and there are two. This is Northwest 22nd Street, and a number of cul-de-sacs branch off of that street, and these two are two cul-de-sacs that are in close proximity to the subject property, which is located here. You could see the property is here. And the noticeable thing about it is there are very large single-family dwellings all in this area. You could see here and here. And another one is that this property has frontage from the south side, no frontage here. It occupies this full lot and a number of other large lots, and this is the subject property here. Here you could see the lots, the actual layout of the subdivision as shown here. And again, what it reflects both along 22nd and 23rd, very large single-family development in here, larger on this side, but in there they're relatively larger, and you can see some smaller single-family dwellings on the periphery. This part here is a full subdivision that was created in 1950, as you can see here. And one thing you want to note is that the lots created in this plat, 1, 2, 3, 4, goes up to 10 and 11. So this lot here was one large lot that was created when the property was subdivided officially. And this is the zoning. You can see RSF1. What happened in the future, well, since the construction, the approval of the subdivision, this lot has been divided by meets and bounds into those parcels, as you can see here. So there is no evidence that this was actually platted in accordance with the single-family dwelling, but one thing that we are sure is that they were platted with lots much greater than the RSF1, which is 8,500 square feet. But in this case, those lots are a lot larger than that, almost 0.3 to about a full acre in some areas. And over here, you could see the plat shown here. To make a comparison, we have the subject property and RSF 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these are the general single-family residential development. So you can see the type of development standards that exist. And in this case, this subject parcel has greater development standards than any of those existing, except for the one request which we will be discussing tonight. Again, this shows a broader area. So what we analyzed from this is that in this case, this situation, the requested variance is not about the actual development standards, but more about the character of the area. And if you look at this map, what you could see is that all around this area, in these areas here, you have very much relatively smaller lots. You can see these are very narrow as opposed to these. So as you look at this request, the one thing you have to take into consideration is not so much the development standards of setback, but the character of the area and how the request would affect or not affect those areas. This is a close-up again of the subject property, and you see this is the building. There are structures on this, but very rare. In this case, we have one on this side and one structure here. And I'm not too sure what those are. I think that might be a recreational vehicle and how you get back. But the applicant is here, and when he makes his presentation, he will explain the layout to you. And this is the proposed location of the three-car garage right in the back area here. One of the reasons that the applicant is requesting that variance is because of the existence of septic tank and a drain field which occurs in this area. So there you have the layout of the subject property. This is the lot. The cul-de-sac runs this way and the adjacent parcel is here. So as you can see, there's a lot of space between the building and there, but it has been improved with other accessory structures which the applicant will And this is the proposed garage as you see here. So this is the general location of the septic tank and the drain field that runs over on this side. The one thing that staff did not have would be distances from the actual drain field and the septic tank, which the applicant will explain. It shows 5 feet, but I'm not quite sure we follow what this 5 feet is and what this 24 feet, and the applicant will explain that to you. But the size of the garage is 22 by 36. You could see it here. So staff looked at this and was trying to find out, well, what are the alternative options available? And I came up with one here. I'm not saying that this is a desirable location for the applicant, but you can see that with this area, it's outside of the setback on this side and it's outside of the setback on this side. And by the way, this is the setback. That red line is the setback for the primary structure, and the red one below there is the setback for accessory structure. So moving it up here, this alternative seemed like it has potential. The other one would be if you move the garage over on this side, shift it from here to this way, meeting that setback on this side and meeting that setback on this side would be an alternate option. However, it would reduce the size of that garage. As you can see, that the width is about from here to there, and this is an additional extension. And that would completely avoid the septic tank and the drain field. Exactly where that drain field is, staff is not quite aware of that. And the third option would be this way, meeting the setbacks, but as you come in, you would move into this way and this way. And this is also a smaller accessory structure than the applicant is proposing. One of the benefits that staff saw about this is that it would actually provide a better access to directly entering the single-family residence, because the other aspect of the development that the applicant claims is that there is an elderly person who lives in this, and during inclement weather, it's difficult to get into the house without getting either drenched by rain or whatever the element would be, and that would provide an additional cover as they moved it. And the question we had was, this seemed like it's not actually meeting the requirement, but this alternative may, and that is if the applicant is interested in this option. So with that, Mr. Chair, we go through the typical criteria that we have to make sure we meet, and so there they are, the 7 criteria, and I will run through them quickly. The first one is special conditions. So the special conditions that we see here are, 1, that it's on a cul-de-sac that grants it an odd shape. However, I could not quite relate how these special circumstances here would impact the request for a variance. So you can see on this side that this is the entry, the applicant comes in here, and the structure would be in the rear. As you can see that the site is developed more intensely than in a lot of areas, and because of the existence of this structure and this structure over there, staff could not see how the applicant can drive out there and get into this garage, but again, the applicant will explain this. So what we looked at were 2 options. Either they would come in this way, which provides a very close parking area here from the inclement weather. So if you cover this and meet this setback, it might work. But for whatever circumstances, the applicant will explain to you that the desire is to put the structure over here, in which case you have an alternate access here if this is completely blocked. So there are options on this side. The other criteria that the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. Clearly, the cul-de-sac, the shape of the lot, and the lot size of the lot are not directly due to the applicant's actions. They were part of the situation that was created at the time of subdivision in the 1950s. So that's not directly. However, creating the placement of this and the size and shape of that garage is directly the action of the applicant. That granting the variance request will not confer upon the applicant's special privileges. And the very reason that we're going through this is to make sure that as you analyze the criteria for the variance, you take into consideration all these factors. And in that case, if you've done that, then it would be based on merits and not on special privilege. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the Land Development Code would deprive the applicant of rights normally acquired by usual property owners, and this is not the case. If you deny this variance or if it's not approved, then the applicant still has the resources, the full resources of the single family dwelling. The variance request is the minimum variance, and the alternatives that we showed indicated that it may not be the minimum because this is a 3-car garage, and reducing it to, say, a 2-car garage or a 1-car garage would be closer to meeting that minimum requirement. And criteria F is that the variance is in harmony with the general intent. Staff does not believe that placing a garage here would have a negative impact on the area. The area is very low density in general relative to the surrounding areas, although there are not many accessory structures straggling throughout this area, but because of the size of the parcel, this is like 17,000 compared to the required 8,500. We do not think that approving the garage would be a detriment to the area and also the surrounding properties. So with that, Mr. Chair, our recommendation is that you review the request in the context of the criteria and you determine whether it has met those requirements and whether to grant the variance or not. With that, I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Does the petitioner have a presentation?
I think he's on the line, so I will stop sharing.
I'm here. Can you hear me, Lawrence?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here. The presentation I have, Lawrence took care of all of it. What I had was concerned was the 2 other reasons were, one, of course, is the elderly mother. She's 90 plus. They want to make it easier for her. The garage size is based on the fact that she has her car. She's going to have nursing staff start coming in and helping her there. Of course, you're going to need parking for that. And if you look at the rear back structure, that is actually, this house is multi-leveled. The family has concurred that that back room on that back corner is the best place to her if they have to geriatric her in that room, because it's a single level from the backyard directly into that room that's sunken from the rest of the house. So the petition is more prone for the working for the result and satisfaction of the elderly person and trying to get her done. And then the other positioning of it, the other important thing that they were concerned about is the rest of the homeowners is that eventually that drain field and that septic system may have to either be maintained, may have to be repaired, or may even have to be upgraded, depending on what we find for the future in the septic systems. So they were just trying to alleviate a little bit of the room and give a little bit to that repair so that they don't have to wind up having to worry about the building itself getting knocked around if they have to go in there and replace a septic or a drain field, because they don't know if and when the utility is going to come to them for sewer system.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone from the board have any questions for the petitioner?
Sure.
Mr. Kane?
Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, who are we speaking with? Mr. Pegel?
Yes, Tim Pagel.
Hey, Tim. Question on the aerial photo that Lawrence shared. It looks like there's some type of carport or structure on the east side of the house. It looks, just based on the aerial, it looks like it may be like a covered parking area right next to the side door on the east side of the house. Can you explain what that is?
That's an RV structure, one of them aluminum structures that you just bolt to the slab. They have that next to it to cover that parking right now. The issue they're running into is that access there is of the upper level for the mother. She'd have to step down in two different locations, and she's already had incidents of falling. So they've chose to just put her in that back section of the house. That would be an alternative, but I believe our goal is to take that down and give us direct driveway access to the rear garage so that she has better access into the home and to stay on one level, single level.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the board have any questions for the petitioner?
I have a,
Ms. Marisi?
How many people actually live in the house?
And that one there was the daughter, the grandmother. I think there's like 3 or 4 people that live in the house, plus they'll have nursing staff coming in and out.
What is your relationship to the petitioner?
My relationship? Nothing more than I just met them about a year ago. I was building a dwelling down the street on 22nd, and they just happened to walk by and stop and talk to me.
So you are the contractor for the garage?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Herron?
So, staff presented 2 other options. Were those not like to their liking, or is that not a possibility to make it within the setback?
What has happened? The one to the east of it is they would be ripping down stone walls and actually gates and everything. It would be an access nightmare. And then you would still have that problem with blocking the septic, because now you have the structure staying on the one side of the house. We have to have access in case of the septic system seems to fail. And of course, that house was built quite a few years ago. That they're preparing for that issue. And then the other one that was smaller that Lauren showed, that would basically be almost right up on top of the drain field. So we're trying to, our goal really is to, one, give her a good place that she can access to the house easily, and also if they have to incur an additional septic and drain field to be installed over the next handful of years, that they leave access for the contractor to come in and be able to do that.
Yes. Ms. Van. Yeah, turn your microphone on. That's it.
Thank you, dear. Good evening. I just have a question about the neighbors to the south and the east. They would be the folks who might be likely to see it or be impacted by the reduction in the setback.
Yes, they would be the people to the rear, which would be the south,
Yes.
and the east would both be the people that would have any objection. We've talked to both of them. They have had none. And if you saw on the picture, the man to the east already has something pretty close to the setback that when he purchased it, it was there. So they're kind of one of them things where you don't, I'll help you kind of thing. There's no harm, no foul to each other.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have one question. Is the only parking for the house at the moment that RV structure on the west side?
Yes, that RV roof section right now is the only spot for parking. And to get to the room where she has her bedding and all, you go in the house, you go up into the kitchen area, then you go 3 steps down into the back room, and there's just no access around the house to get to that room without us doing a garage and then giving her a sidewalk directly into that room.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, you want to read?
Yes. What is on the east side of the property? All I see is trees.
It's on the east side of the property.
The west side?
I'm sorry,
Between the
the west
building, or
side,
do you mean the
yes.
west side?
The west side, excuse me.
It's, believe it or not, I guess she's been there forever. She's got quite an elaborate garden over there of some rare fruit trees and whatnot. There's some pretty nice trees back there. I think some nice big heritage oaks. She'd probably spend as much money replacing trees on that side back to the city as she would just building a structure with some of the landscaping over there.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Mr. Hartman.
So, I was just looking at the diagrams, and it looks like the proposed location of the garage is there's still a fair amount of space in between the actual, permanent housing structure and the location of the permanent garage. Are there plans for building other walkways or whatever in that space? And if so, what would be the difficulty in just moving the garage slightly closer to the rear of the permanent structure in the house?
The big one was, like I said, the drain field and the septic. We were just afraid that if we move it any forward, and we do find out, because to locate all that we'd have to start digging in the backyard to find it all, because of the drawing, that was put in so many years ago. They're just concerned about the drain field and the septic, and that's why we were just asking for the variance to simplify it all. And we know that we know we've probed around there long enough in the backyard that none of this would impede the ability to actually do a repair or increase the drain field if they had to.
Thank you. Any more?
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question to that, sir. Is if it was reduced from a 3-car garage to a 2-car garage, would that alleviate the same concerns with the access to the drain field?
Yes, that's true. You could reduce the garage down some to accommodate more for the drain field and the length of it. I think the location of it, because of that driveway, the way it lines up and comes straight down, that's the best location for the garage. Our concern is just getting through there to fix the drain field with heavy equipment, without having to tear up the entire yard from the other direction. The other side of the house, the west side of the house, is completely canvassed with, like I said, fruit trees and everything that she has along there. And there's a big stone wall that goes around the property. This is really the only driveway access into the property.
Thank you. Any more questions from the board? Okay, let's move on to board comments. Does anybody have any
Do you want to
comments?
ask the public?
Oh, that's a good one. Is there anyone from the public that has any comments on this petition? Thank you. Hearing none, let's move on to board comments.
Well, I do have comments. I can't support this petition. I think that I don't see a need. I see a request to ignore the restrictions that are already placed on the properties within the city of Gainesville. I know this area of the city very well. I know that you can put on-street parking within your easement if you so desire. I see a patio on that right side. I see no reason why the garage can't be a 2-car garage or even a 1-car garage with the long driveway going to the curb. So I don't see a reason, nor do I see, I just don't see a reason. When you have a great need, you do what's necessary within the bounds of your property, and you don't ask the city to make it easier. I'm sorry, I'm being harsh, but I think the variances are for various particular cases when there's no choice, and there are a lot of choices here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miyosaki. Dr. Vandermeer.
I'm doing a great Wikipedia research here on what really are septic fields susceptible to. What can you put on top of septic fields? And so it seems to me that there's more information that could be presented about this. How the location of the septic field, and information about how heavy something might be that is laid on top of a septic field. It wouldn't cover very much of it. There would be ways to access that septic field from still as it looks on this picture.
But if it has to be replaced, does it not change it?
Could I make a piggyback comment on that?
Certainly, go ahead.
So, yes, the other part of it is the septic field is probably, the drain field and the septic tank, they're two different things. The septic tank can probably be moved. I mean, if you're going to talk about, and without a doubt, if it's in the original construction, this house that's been there a very long time, And, you know, it would actually be quite prudent to move it. If not, it would be very expensive. I understand why it's not been changed, to have GRU come in and put in a sewer connection. But ultimately, that's what should happen everywhere, not have drain fields for all the reasons I don't need to go into. So again, there are options here that could be done that would make this easily fit within the variance.
Thank you. Any other board members have any comments? Mr. Hartman?
I'm just gonna, so, you know, I try and stick with the criteria that we're supposed to consider when we're evaluating applications for whether or not variances should be granted. And the one that I'm stuck on is the one, the variance requested is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. And I'm kind of hung up on that one because it seems like even if the size of the garage was reduced from a 3-car garage to a 2-car garage or a 1-car garage, it would still be able to accomplish many of the same goals that it appears the applicant is trying to accomplish, but then wouldn't require the variance. And so to me, I'm stuck on that it doesn't seem that this application meets that criteria that we're supposed to be using when we're evaluating the application. And so that's why I'm leaning in opposition to granting the variance in this case for that reason.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I would just say that I tend to agree with the comments my fellow board members have made. It seems to me there are some options that would not require a variance that are reasonable options and could still accomplish the objectives from what Mr. Pagel described. So I'm not really inclined at this point to vote to grant the variance.
Thank you.
I would have to say the same thing. I
Sure.
think the minimum requirements, at least in my opinion, there's other options that look like they could be just as viable, and understand like reaching and accessing the septic tank and the drain field is an important requirement. And I think, you know, if you want a 3-car garage, have a 3-car garage, definitely. And there's other options to be able to have it. To me, it makes more sense to be closer to the building if the goal is to, you know, not be affected by weather or get to where you need to be sooner, easier, faster. So it makes sense to me, like what staff suggested makes a little more sense rather than the other option. So yeah, I'm leaning towards not granting it because it does not meet that, you know, minimum requirement.
Thank you. And I agree with all the previous comments of the board without laboring the point, but I don't think it meets all of the criteria. In fact, there are multiple criteria it doesn't meet, and there are reasonable compromises that could be made. So we've all had our say. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, before you make a motion, it might be a good idea to give the applicant an opportunity to talk about the drain field, because there were questions about the drain field and whether he wants to withdraw the application rather than denying it, because he cannot come back for 2 years if you deny it. So if you want.
Okay, so the point is that if we deny it now, you can't come back. If we continue it and you withdraw, but if the petition is withdrawn, then it can be resubmitted in a reasonable time. Does the applicant like to address this possibility, please?
Yes, I would love to. How about if you give me a continuance and we actually stake and lay out the drain field? I'll have the client pay for a septic, Myers or somebody, to come out there. We'll locate the septic, we'll locate the drain field, we'll do a complete layout of the building, and if then we're running into the same issue with the drain field, maybe we need to call GRU and have them connect to the sewer, because picking up and moving a septic is, I mean, that might as well just, where would you move that to is the next question. The house is quite covered with, you know, a healthy canopy. So yes, if you'd like to continue it, I'd like to have a continuance to where we get exact numbers on where all the product is stationed in the backyard. and more close-up video of the actual surroundings as they are today. And maybe we'll have a different opinion from the board based on the issue that we're having with the drain field itself and the septic.
Yes, thank you. There was also other issues with the minimum use of the property, or where there's the minimum reasonable use. I think if we continue this petition, then you can talk to staff and work out the details to attempt to overcome the objections that we have tonight, and maybe have a better chance of success in the future if the variance is still required. Given that, would someone like to make a motion?
I guess if the applicant is withdrawing the,
Or you make a motion to continue?
He's not withdrawing, he's
Oh,
asking
just-
for,
okay.
He asked for a
Oh, okay.
continuance.
So then I would move to continue the consideration of variance petition DB-21-205.
I'd like to have a time limit on that.
Oh.
3 months.
6 months. Yeah, move to continue it for a maximum of 3 months until May of 2022.
Okay, do we have a second for this motion?
Second it, Deborah Neal Marisi.
There's a motion made by Mr. Hartman, seconded by Ms. Neal Marisi. All those in favor of the motion to continue?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is member comment. Do any members have a comment? I have a comment on the letter to the City Commission that I was about to going to sign. It was going to come back to us.
yeah.
Lawrence, would you talk a little bit more about when is the City Commission considering this, and are we too late with our letter?
Well, they talked about it.
Actually, just an update on this.
Yes.
I think
17th.
the 17th, the City Commission did consider that action, and they sent it back to staff to do some reworking with the slant of giving consideration to the Development Review Board, reviewing petitions at a certain level. I will make sure that I didn't get that letter into the City Commission package, but I will at the next time, which it goes back to the City Commission.
Could you cover the mediation? I did listen to the meeting and made a comment by phone. I was having computer problems. I couldn't get in on my computer, but there was a lot of talk about, there was a very large, thorough discussion of the issue with the DRB, et cetera, by the City Commission, and very strongly for and against, and within the commission, and quite a few people giving presentations on it. But part of it, the end, is they were going to go back and look at the term of using a mediator. So there was discussion about using a mediator for some of the developments or the Development Review Board. It was not clear. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, we have, for code enforcement, we have a hearing officer.
Yes. Yes,
It's
yes.
called a magistrate. That's one person who presides over any request
Yes,
that
yes.
staff puts before them. And that one person makes the decision as to whether the situation is, meets the code or it doesn't meet the code.
But why was it brought up? That's been true for many years. Why was it brought up in the discussion?
I think staff, that's one of the recommendations that staff had as an alternative, is to have a special magistrate just like the Code Enforcement Board.
That would be, that would represent the DRB, or that would represent
that would,
the
yes.
neighborhoods?
No, that would be, instead of the DRB, would be,
Oh, but that's been true. That's not new. They're just confirming what's always been true.
well, it was an alternative that was presented.
I see.
But they struck that out of when they asked for the rewrite, didn't they say remove that?
I did not hear the
I don't
end,
think
but
so.
I think it was to have, my understanding was that the board, the staff would bring back a recommendation that has a certain level at which the DRB would review. Below that, it would continue to be reviewed by staff, and then above that, the DRB would see it. But that still is up for discussion with the city commission.
Above that, it would be the magistrate.
No, it would be, no, the magistrate is a totally different animal in all. It would be either the magistrate reviewing it or the DRB, and I think the direction was to have the DRB review it with modified thresholds.
Right, yes, yes. Well, it's less expensive, is it not, than paying a mediator? I mean, there's a confusion here because one is when someone is so upset and doesn't accept the verdict of the DRB, they go to the mediator as a legal step.
Yeah, your decision is appealable to a hearing officer.
Correct. So that is out of the picture. You're talking about a hearing officer coming in and place the DRB.
A special magistrate, I think that's what it was called.
And we
To
would no
replace the
longer function.
DRB.
I don't know the details of whether the board would continue to function because you still do variances and you still do subdivisions. So the details of that, I kind of dropped out of the conversation just to do something, and by the time I came back, it was done.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of conversation regarding the notification of the neighbors. There was an excellent presentation by the plan board, someone on the plan board who was cut off. I'd love to see a copy of that. I don't know how we could get a copy of that.
Oh, you can get it from the.
They used an overhead. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough time to go through, but they had excellent data on how to reach out to neighbors and people for letting them know that the workshops are coming up, which is part of the problem.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it was very interesting. Well, maybe I'll go back and listen to the whole thing because I do think that the city commission was going to go back to it. There was a lot of discussion about the cost and how much time it takes and slowing down the developers and this type of thing by having these developments reviewed. But I think that considering the number of very irate neighbors, which isn't reducing, it's increasing, and developments, they are taking a more serious look at it, is my impression.
I think the presentation you were talking about was done by CHW consultants. It was a guy who was doing flipping the pages. I think that was CHW. Because I thought I saw the logo on it, but that was a really good presentation.
It was, and it had really very good stats, so maybe I could go back and find that, and then specifically. Because it's all part of that bigger picture. On the other hand, it's a curiosity because it's not truly, how many of you want to spend time looking at this? We've written one letter. I made it clear what my thoughts were on it, and as a member of the DRB, and I wasn't terribly succinct because it was very difficult because the interface was slow. So, yeah, well, we just do what we can. I mean, ultimately, the city commission is going to do what they want.
That's right, yeah.
So do we get a chance to submit our letter before the next
Yes.
meeting?
Yeah, the next time we'll get.
So our next meeting in March 22, we'll probably be reviewing the content of that, and then
I
I can
think
decide.
if we could review that and what their notes said, the rewriting.
Yes.
Because I
yeah.
think that would be important to say, like, whether we favor, like, what they were thinking of doing. Because I thought they were, at one point, someone suggested doing something in between intermediate and major development. Like, why isn't there something in between that? And then I think they want all major development to go through the development review board. It was kind of confusing to look over the notes, and then listening to them was really hard too.
Good
But
idea.
It was hard.
it would be definitely nice to see, like, the notes
Did they
from the meeting.
write up and publish their city commission meeting notes, or do you have to wait for the formal minutes to come out? When they take an issue, because they've
There
been.
is a backup. There is a backup for this with the city commission that staff submitted. There's a backup package that included. stuff from staff.
Okay. Because I would like to see a written summary. I'd like to see the date because, you know, I'm nervous about waiting another month because I don't know when the city commission, they seem to pop up to
Yeah,
having
right,
these
just
meetings
comes
and
up.
it's hard to figure out when they're going to talk about the DRB.
Okay,
I will do my best to send it back to you guys, and you can make a firm decision. If you need to have a special meeting or something, then that's an option also. A
I think-
workshop or something.
we can probably consider it at the end of the next meeting, as long as it's not too long an
The
agenda.
next meeting
and then
is the
maybe make a special meeting
22nd,
after that.
I think.
Uh,
22nd.
If we can just get information in the letter and then wordsmith it. Okay, thank you. Next item is the next meeting date, March the 22nd, 2022. And that's the end of the agenda. So would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn?
I second the motion, Deborah Neal Marisi.
All in favor?
Aye.
The
Hi.
meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.